We're now going to add a column to remark upon what gender each student is. So we're going to right click on D, hit insert, and it's going to push everything to the right. We're going to rename column 1 to be gender and hit enter. And then we're going to mark what gender each person is. So male, Terry Anderson is going to be female, Joe is male, and you'll notice that it doesn't autocomplete if it's in the same column and it thinks it recognizes the same word. Sally is female, Andrea is female, and Carla is female. After you've added those, I'm going to show you how to sort and filter. We're going to go to last name first, and we're going to sort A through Z by last name. So now it's in alphabetical order by last name. You can go to gender now and show just the males. So uncheck female, right, and hit OK. And now we're just seeing our males. And you know if you're filtering because if you look really closely, this has changed to look like a filter from your kitchen. And then you know if it's sorting alphabetically because this has changed. Now let's go back and we're going to change it to show females, not males. You'll see now it's just showing females. Another thing you can do is filter by multiple criteria. So right now we're filtering by females, but I only want to see females who are in trouble of failing. So we're going to go all the way over to average. We're going to click on that arrow and we're going to go to number filters and we're going to say less than 70. So now you can see that you're only seeing females who have an average less than 70. And those, you had lots of options. You could have done equals, does not equal, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, between. So it has a bunch of things that you can do. If you're wanting to get rid of filters, you can click here and go to clear filter from average. You can also click here, go to clear filter from gender. And it doesn't affect your sort. So all of that is up to you. Another sort you can do is by color. So for instance, if you had gone through and separated things by color, for instance, students in, I don't have a 9th grade column, but maybe I know that this student is in 9th grade, so I'm marking them yellow, and this student is in 9th grade, so I'm marking them yellow. You can actually pull, I want to filter by color. So go to filter and click yellow. And now it's going to weed out everybody except for the people who are yellow. Similarly, we could have picked the filter by color and chosen the no fill, which would have done everybody but those kids that were in yellow. So you can do number filters, color filters, and the difference between a sort and a filter is that a sort is going to rearrange the data, but it doesn't eliminate any of it. A filter actually weeds out information to give you usable information to view, but it doesn't actually delete anything permanently from the spreadsheet. So I'm actually going to tell these to have no fill, so that now it goes back to the formatting that I had set for my table. One thing that I'd like to show you is a really popular advanced function that might be useful to you, especially if you're dealing with data a lot from other people. So we're going to right click on D and we're going to add a new column. So insert. This new column is going to be called full name. If you're given information like first name and last name in separate columns and you wanted to combine them, you absolutely can do that with a function. Now, you might not have a clue what that function is called. If you're ever looking to find a function, you don't know what to call it, but you're guessing that Excel can do it, you can go to the F of X button and search. And remember that you can go to all and there's a million things here. Well, going through and looking one by one would take you forever. We can type in a description and it might just eliminate things down for us. So what I'm wanting to do is to join the first name and the last name. So I don't have to retype everything. So I'm going to type in join in my search here and hit go, and it comes up with one thing. concatenate, and it says concatenate joins several text strings into one text string. That's exactly what I'm looking to do. So I hit OK, and it pops this box up. Text 1 is going to be the student's first or last name, because I want last name comma first name. So I click on the last name. Text 2 is going to be comma space, because I want it to appear as Anderson comma space Terry, and text 3 is going to be the student's first name. This is showing you an example of how it looks. You can always change it if you don't want to. Please notice that here it's showing you that any text goes into quotation marks, but when you're using this function arguments box, it does it for you. And if you ever needed to designate a blank line or a blank with nothing in it, you can just do 2 quotation marks right next to each other. But I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to widen my column, and you can see that it put Terry Anderson comma Terry for me, and then it filled in Brown Sally, Doe Joe, etc., etc. That's all stored, however, as a function. If you wanted to get rid of the function, you can actually highlight it all, right click copy, and then I'm going to actually paste it right into the same thing. So see, right now it's showing you that there's a function. You could right click and paste special until it value and hit OK, and now it's actually stored as text. The function is no longer able to be seen. Now, to get rid of that blinking dotted line, I just hit the escape key. It goes away. Sometimes you're given the information in this full name and you want it to be separated. You can do that too. So I'm going to hide, just for the ease of viewing here, columns A, B, and C. When you hide a column, they don't go away permanently. They're just hidden from view temporarily. To hide, you highlight, right click, and hit hide. And later on we'll unhide. Now I want to break this into columns. I don't want it all to be one name. I want to separate it out. And you can do that pretty easily. But when you do that, it's going to shift everything to the right and replace anything that's on the right hand side of this particular column. So I actually suggest you copy paste it to a new tab until you get familiar with using what's called text to columns. Text to columns is going to divide text into multiple columns based on how you choose. We're going to right click on E and hit insert twice. We're going to highlight this. I highlighted D3 through D8, and you're going to go to the data tab. And when you go to the data tab, you're going to hit text to columns. Now delimited is whenever you're picking something that is a character. Commas, spaces, tabs, etc. Fixed with are fields where it will have spaces in between, and you can actually draw the line in between where you want it. And I'm going to show you both. We're going to pick delimited first and hit next. And all of our names, our first and last name, is separated with comma. So I'm going to uncheck tab and I'm going to hit comma. And you'll see down here it completely changed it. Then we hit next. Then we hit finish. And it moves Anderson. It keeps the last name here, but then it has the first name here. Now I would type first name in here, but you'll notice that in front of every single name it actually has a space, and I don't want a space there. I could physically go in and delete each space, but that's going to take me a while, especially if I had hundreds of names. So I'm going to show you how to do the text to columns again, but this time we're going to choose fixed. So you highlight this, that's E3 through E8, go to text to columns. This time we're choosing fixed with, because if you'll notice, the first character of every name starts in the exact same place because that space is consistent. You hit next, and we're going to put a little line right here in front of all the names. Then you hit next, and you hit finish. Now it separated column 2, which is just a space, and column 1, which is the names. Right click on E, delete, and you can change full name to last name, and column 1 here, which is E2, to first name. And we don't need those, so we're going to highlight D and E, right click and hit delete, and then we're going to go back and unhide our columns A through C by highlighting here, D, right-clicking and telling it to unhide. There are a lot of advanced functions in Excel, and to go over all of them would take forever. So I'm going to show you one that actually has the same premise in different forms. And you'll see what I mean with that in a second. We're going to go over here to A10 and type in the word male, hit enter, and then in A11 type in female. We're going to come up with a function that will count how many people we have are female. And we'll also come up with a function that will do a count if they're male. Now this is when we're going to go back to the Formulas tab and insert a function this way, because I told you I would show you that earlier. We're going to go to Insert Function, and we're going to type in count, even, and hit go. The reason I said count is because there are tons of count functions, or things that have to do with counting. And if you clicked on them, you could read. So this would just count the number of cells in a range. Well, we don't want to count all of the number of cells in the range. We want to count if. So you could click on dcount, read it, dcount A. We want count if. So we're going to hit OK, and it's going to pop up our function arguments. Well, our range is going to be the column or the grouping of cells that we want to look at for this information. That happens to be D3 through D8. You could type in D3 colon D8 if you wanted, but you can just highlight the information also. Now our criteria for that range, because we're on here where it says male, is going to be male. So you type in male, and you hit OK, and it found 2. We're going to do the exact same thing for female, except this time we're going to say female. So insert function. Our recently used functions show up here, so we're going to double click CountIF, highlight our range, and then our criteria this time is female. It's picky, capitalization matters and spelling matter. And you hit OK. And it found 4. The reason why you like formulas is because if we were to change Terry Anderson to a male, it would now be 3 and 3. I'm going to undo with Control-V. CountIF is one of the many types of if functions that exist. If you hit Insert Function and type in if and hit go, you'll see that there's an if functions. There's a bunch of different functions. There's SUMIF, there is CountIF, there's AverageIF, etc., etc. And the if functions are some of the best functions that exist. And the reason I say that is because it looks at a bunch of information and it can return results to you based on what you're putting in. So I'm going to show you one if function. Now if functions are great because they can include things that didn't exist before. We were counting if. Well, count function's a fairly used function, so it's intuitive. But we're going to go to Insert Function, double click on if, and our logical test is something that is greater than, equal to, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal to. If you don't know those operands, the less than sign, the greater than sign, you should really review those. But our logical test is going to be if D3 is equal to female, and I have to write female in quotation marks, then they'll be tutored by Mrs. Oates. If they're not female, which would mean that they're male, they'll be tutored by Mr. Brand. And I'd hit OK. And so it automatically fills in who's going to be tutoring. So you've got Mrs. Oates, Mr. Brand, Mrs. Oates, Mr. Brand. So if this was male, this is Mr. Brand, and if this was female, this is Miss Oates. Now, one of the things that's really cool about this Formulas tab is that you can trace precedence or dependence. Dependents are going to be what cells are affected by the value of the current cell. Precedents are the ones that are affecting it. So if I click Trace Precedence, you'll see that it's showing that it's being affected by this gender column. So if I were to change that gender column, it changed to Mr. Brand. I can hit Remove Arrows and it goes away. Now go ahead and continue to the next video where you will learn how to insert some charts.